So hello everybody, welcome to this latest EMCC Global GPS Dialogue. Delighted that Ruairí is here, Ruairí from EDelia Group in Ireland. We're going to be talking about frameworks for establishing a coaching culture. We're very excited to talk about this subject. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you straight over to Ruairí.
Thanks very much, Nicola. Hi everybody, it's very nice to be here. Thank you all for coming. I'd like you to do your best to do whatever you have to do to try and be in the room, be it virtual or otherwise. We're joined here as well today by Shelley Crawford, who does an awful lot of work with us in EDelia, and I'm hoping that we can share some of Shelley's wisdom as well, but I won't ask her to do too much work because I know she's been working very hard lately.
I've been on the beach.
Yeah, it's tough work. It's tough work. What we will try to do is we will try to access as much of the wisdom that's in this virtual room at the moment as we possibly can. We'll share some of our experiences around embedding coaching cultures in higher education, banking, and the medical education really are the areas that we do most of our work in. We will share a few slides, but personally I find that difficult just to talk to slides, so I'll try and keep that to a minimum. But I am really interested to hear of your experiences and to see what we can learn from together in the next hour. It's quite short. We will be using breakout rooms. I'd encourage you to join them when you can. And as Nicola said, if you're a bit shy about going into a breakout room, just put that NBR. Replace your name with NBR, and we'll make sure that you don't have to do that. And this chat, the chat that you can use here, please use it. Even if you don't contribute verbally, we'd be really interested in your thoughts and ideas, and we can obviously get to record the chat. So it's really useful after this is over. For us to gather the wisdom that you might have to share. So, and there's no fun for the next hour, right? There's no laughing, there's no joking, no kidding around. It's all serious. So just keep that in mind, please.
I think I can promise that, Ruairí. Sorry.
So let me ease you guys into it. I'll do a bit of slide sharing here. So here's kind of the main people and us. Richard unfortunately can't be here today. He's otherwise engaged, does a lot of work for us in the UK. Shelley is kind of our global operator in between Doha and South Africa and Ireland, and I get to sit at home in the office and smoke cigars and give out to people. So that's good. But we operate and try and help organizations to embed coaching cultures, and they're the main areas that we work in at the moment. And in higher education, we've been working with the EMCC to promote the ISMCP accreditation, the International Standards for Mentoring and Coaching Programs, and one of our institutions will become the first education institution in the world to receive that accreditation. And we're very, very excited about that because it's been quite a long journey. So we would like to share some of our own experiences. We're very interested to learn from you guys about your experiences of perhaps doing similar work. And hopefully between us, we can come to a greater wisdom so that we're all better informed and wiser as we try and promote the idea of embedding a coaching culture in organizations. And I would again remind you to throw stuff in the chat. Even if you're telling us what the weather's like where you're at, that's fine. It kind of reassures us that there is somebody out there. Well, I'd like to take a look at the why, what, and how in a sense of, I'm going to assume that everybody who's here today has a really good reason why we should embed a coaching culture. So I'm going to skip the why, and we're going to take a look at the what and the how of this pursuit. I'm going to ask you by way of a little icebreaker. We'll put you in groups where they're not too big, so you can have a chat, and not too small that you're forced to chat. But I'd like you to have a think and maybe have a quick discussion for 5 or 6 minutes about if we were to come across an organization where we felt a coaching culture had been embedded, how would we recognize it? And can we come up with some features that you would feel, yeah, that would be they'd be the characteristics of an organization that has an embedded coaching culture, and we'll see if we agree. We have some features and characteristics that we would recognize from the literature that I'll share with you after the breakout rooms.
Just spend about 40 seconds or so, perhaps 50, just write into the chat the things that occurred to you while you're in your breakout room. So you were thinking about the things that you would notice if you went into an organization which had a coaching culture. How would you know that? Ruairí, I think as a general theme of mutual peer level respect and an enablement and allowing people to reach conclusions rather than having a command and control. What kind of things jump out at you, Ruairí?
Yeah, even before the breakout room started, there were two interesting comments in the chat around. One was, I'm just trying to find it there now. Yeah, that from Claire. Thanks, Claire. Everybody understands what a coaching culture is and is not, which is rare enough to be sure. A relatively high degree of psychological safety.
Yeah, that trust and psychological safety and curiosity was a word that I saw coming through as well, like a natural curiosity. But the trust most certainly is coming through, and a whole lot of coaching, which one would expect, of course, coaching principles, core coaching, principles are coming through. Obviously.
Yeah. First of all, can I thank everybody for contributing? There's loads of contributions, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And it'll be after this webinar really that we'll kind of pull these apart. But those general themes, some of the other things that occurred to me, and I'd love to hear from people live as well, is the idea that, there's the coaching premise is that there is a wisdom which the coach and the coachee, by dialoguing, there's a wisdom there that we can come to, as opposed to a solution or a right answer residing in any one person's head. And you mentioned command and control, Nicola, and that's something that we've come across a lot. The resistance, and we'll talk about blockers in a second, but one of the great resistances or blockers to developing that psychological safety is the need of usually managers to feel that they have the solutions, and that this command and control idea that they're the right way forward, it exists somewhere in the manager's head, as opposed to, and it's usually because they lack the inquiry and advocacy skills or coaching skills to allow them to dialogue with people in a way which allows them to come to a wisdom together that they could not have come to themselves, or they were not in possession of themselves. Claire talks there about sucking up power inadvertently. It's a great phrase. Yeah. Which really describes what happens. Yeah, that's a really good phrase. So, okay. So we're interested in it, and it's very interesting for us to see that people have common experiences there. Meeting our development strategists as opposed to just info share. Okay. When you think of Pat Lencioni's triangle about, you need a base of trust before you can have healthy conflict, before you can have any kind of commitment, which allows accountability and a focus on results. That idea of creating psychological safety where it's okay not to have the answer certainly was a big challenge. And it certainly does characterize organizations where we feel there's a coaching culture, if not fully embedded, if that ever happens, but certainly an awareness that it is possible. Okay, really, thank you for. And does anybody want to go on, open the mic and add anything or ask anything at this point before we go on and take a look at maybe some of the blockers and enablers? Please feel free, or you raise your hand or something. We'd be happy to hear. But thank you for the chat input there. That's really great. I'm just going to share again, if that's okay. When I say we, the lads in EDelia, when we do work with organizations, this has been very iterative for us as well. We've in one particular organization that I can think an educational institution. We were 2 years working with the organization before we kind of realized, what we're trying to do here is embed a coaching culture. So we took a look at some of the studies that had happened, and one really useful piece of work was done by Helen Gormley and Christian van Nieuwerburg, who I just learned from Shelley is taking up the position at the Royal College of Surgeons here in Ireland as well, which is great. So we, get more contact with them. But he himself and Helen did this massive study on coaching and coaching cultures and coaching in organizations. Some of you might be familiar with this study. It was 2014. They started off with this kind of definition of a coaching culture that they had kind of distilled from the literature, where people embrace coaching as a way of making holistic improvements. And one of you mentioned that already. And having looked at all those studies, they proposed a new definition of when a coaching culture exists in an organization, and highlighted the need for coaching to be part of the strategic plan of the organization. And they identified 3 characteristics. We asked you to have a think about what would be the characteristics. This is what Christian and Helen felt would be useful for us to look at. That coaching was promoted by the senior leadership, and I'm sure when we talk about blockers, this will come up. That it is presented as an integrated part of the organization or system. Again, what that looks like in practice, we have some experience of that, and the personal commitment by leaders to the development of their own capabilities. The idea of modeling coaching, of modeling the coaching approach. the not just seeing coaching as something which happens in a particular time of the week or day, specific appointments, but an approach and a way of being. So again, very interested to hear what you might have to say about, if you would agree with this, or if you had suggestions on this, and what.
Rory, I think we found, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but we found that whilst it was, everybody always says it's got to be driven by leadership, etc., that actually, seeing and evidencing that role modeling is really, really important from the other people that are being led. So it's not just about saying it. I suppose that's quite an obvious thing. It's really about seeing it filtering down and being role modeled. But that wasn't always the case. And as with anything, and we've talked a little bit about this, the leaders were holding on to their control wherever they could. Some of them wanted recognition for themselves, for their own positions, and that's why they were going through the whole process of trying to embed a coaching culture.
Yeah. Yes, and I think what has happened in the organizations that we've engaged with is we've engaged initially on a small scale, almost like how people go from being an individual coach to maybe one executive to a systemic team approach where as you look at the various lenses, individual, interpersonal, and then team and team goals, stakeholders, and the wider community.
Sorry, I see a note in the chat from Cosmos that says, what I don't hear is the context in which coaching culture can be established and flourish. But if Cosmos wanted to come in a little bit more and talk about that a bit more, or whether Ruairí, you had a response to that.
I'd be very interested in it. Cosmos, are you there? Would you like to?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody. I'm just thinking that, okay, the coaching by itself, but there has to be a context and an infrastructure in which the establishment of coaching culture can be successful. And we go back to, because if you want to coach people within an organization, what is the point of reference? What is their job description? What are the values of the company? Have they been established? Do we have a strategy that is cascaded down to the departments and reaches each one person so we can establish the conditions they flourish and they reach their own potential? So there is a motive. That is what I meant to say.
Mm-hmm. Do you have ideas on that, or experience of having?
Well, I have an experience that we try to establish, and that were the prerequisites, which I have just mentioned. And it was in this way, although by education and training you could develop skills, but then going to the soft skills that coaching addresses, you need all this context in which somebody will try to engage and reach his her potential.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Cosmas and Cosmas, and that's what we found in all the organizations that we were working with, that there had to be that structure, that framework. We also found that that one of the biggest blockers was actually the day-to-day systems, because when you come to, there might be all that heart and even that strategy and that vision, but if you don't have the systems in place, then it's very hard to actually know that you are embedding a coaching culture. And I think that's where the EMCC's framework structure, the ISMCP award, that quality award, really, really helped to guide us and realize that whilst it was such a dynamic process, that we had those benchmarks really
exactly
to work towards. Yeah, thank
you. We need benchmarks.
Yes.
Cosmos, have you used the ISMCP framework? Is that something you're familiar with?
ISMCP.
It's the International Standards for Mentoring and Coaching Programs. It's an EMCC framework for organizations. We found that really useful, as Shelley said, to benchmark. It allows people actually to look at their organizations and see what is actually happening at the moment, what they're doing well at the moment, and what kind of areas then that they need to look at, and to, as you said, to benchmark it against best practice. So we found that really, really useful.
Well, it was a global initiative that was sent to countries from the company I used to work for, and therefore, what kind of model they followed, I don't know, but it was very, very well prepared and very structured that we had to comply with and apply.
Okay. That sounds very interesting. I'd like to hear more about that. Thank you, Cosmos. David? Harriet. David, there we go.
Yeah.
Sometimes the structures can be a problem, especially if some view coaching as a top-down management tool as opposed to a way of being. Yeah, it's age-old problem. Again, look, our experience has been that, and it's something I've learned in the last couple of years as I've studied more about the team coaching approach, that many times when you work with an organization, you are actually coaching, even if you're just working with a few individuals, you are, in a sense, coaching the organization or a piece of the organization and raising awareness in parts of it. So that people start asking more questions around, look, this is good. How do we get this more into the organization? And that awareness raising, it takes time. It really does. Nicholas thanks, Nicola, for this course standards.
And I think, talking to David's point again too, Rory, that viewing of coaching as a top-down management thing versus a way of being at work, that goes back to educating, helping everyone in the organization to understand that, and that's through educating them, isn't it? And letting them experience it as a coach or an individual using a coaching approach in things that they do and everything that they do where they can. Yeah.
For sure. It's terrific. Made a point there about coaching in many people's eyes is seen as it's still a deficit model, that, we've got to fix this person. Let's get them a coach. We've had some really interesting debates about whether the term is obsolete almost, that maybe we need a different vocabulary or terminology around this. But that's another debate. So what I would like to do is to give you a chance to discuss your own experiences around the blockers and the enablers, and to come back and share those. And we can maybe then run through a framework that we've used, or the ISMCP framework, perhaps. The blockers and enablers for building a coaching culture, yeah. So let me do that, and please keep contributing to the chat, guys. It's very rich. Thank you. Nicola, will we go back to the room? Oh, let me give you a slide here so you know what you're talking. Sorry. What are the blockers and what are the enablers in your experience? So the blockers and enablers. So let's put people in rooms, and I know it's only 5 minutes, but let's see what we can get from it. Nicola, would you mind putting people? Thanks.
5 minutes. I'll bring you back in 5 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, what have we got here? Enablers. All right. Oh, great. There's great stuff in the chat, lads. It's a pity we don't have more time. All right, so blockers and enablers. Level of understanding of what coaching is or isn't. Yeah, actually, Nicola made the point there. We were chatting, while you guys are in the room, about how everybody's starting from a different, a different place. And that's true of every organization, but it's also true. We're noticing, like, cross-culturally, different cultures. Just you're starting in a different place with this. So level of understanding what coaching is, the vital importance of modeling. Yeah, Christian really emphasized that. Anyone can be a blocker in the organization if they don't know what coaching is. Anyone can be a blocker in the organization if they don't know what coaching is. Okay.
And also Julianne saying organizations can confuse coaching with training or performance management. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or they don't realize that a coaching approach can be utilized in both training and performance management.
Yeah.
That's what we found. And once they realized that, then it was something quite epiphanic, no? Epiphany?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a word.
I'm watching the time here now. I'm really glad we have the chat, though. This stuff is very useful. It mirrors, lack of clarity. Salo. Okay, so we were chatting there about, like, okay, so let's try and get a bottom line here around takeaways and stuff. And Shelley mentioned this already. The first thing is, this stuff takes time. There are no shortcuts here. It takes a lot of time, and perseverance was the word that Shelley used. It really does. And much of the initial work is around raising awareness that there are benefits and a need to do this work in the first place. And that does take a long time, as with all culture change. So many of the things that are needed in order to embed a coaching culture, and Cosmos mentioned this as well, those things, if they already existed in the organization, you probably wouldn't need to be working with them. That they become the awareness that we need to make changes around here. Comes from the work that you will do with the organization, perhaps initially just with an individual person, but you are continually raising that awareness. And the second takeaway, I think, that we found useful anyway, is having some kind of a framework in order to be able to benchmark where you are and where you might want to go. And we found that really useful. So two of the main things that we've used are the work of Peter Hawkins and the ISMCP framework. We've let me just share with you, and I'm sorry enough for not reading out all the chat, but we certainly will be going through it. And there's a kind of a networking thing after this too, Nicola, isn't it? We might get to chat about some of those as well. So bear with me now, let's get this out. So we had a bit of a discussion on that, and hopefully you met. So a few things that we kind of refer to. What David Claudeberg and David Megerson, they have identified kind of 4 stages that I'm sure if you read these, and you can certainly have the slides, that you'll see kind of where your organization is. I find that as a broad brushstrokes picture, I find this quite useful. This is something that Peter Hawkins has proposed, that the organization we used with this first, we had come in as an external coaching provider, not really commissioned to embed a coaching culture. We were just working with the organization, but we got to a stage with the organization and a level of awareness where it was obvious that we needed some kind of a map. And Hawkins doesn't really propose that this is a linear map, that you drift back and forward along this. But the idea of getting an organization to a stage where they realize that this needs certainly changes inside, but that help from an outside organization is very useful. That was, again, I found this quite useful. Developing capacity. Developing capacity is incredibly useful because you then start to build a gang. You start to build a group of people that are kind of on the same wavelength, and that trickles then into other areas of the organization where how they go about their work, they model it. People start to ask questions about what's this coaching thing about, and hopefully you then get to a stage where leaders start to actively support it. And this mindset change away from command and control, and this realization by leaders that tapping into the wisdom of people who are closest to the problems in the organization, by using a coaching approach, it's not a switch that happens in a week or a day. It's a very slow process, and we need to persevere. Team coaching, everywhere you look now, it's all about team coaching. I know Peter Hawkins said to us recently that don't forget, every time you do an individual coaching session, you're coaching a piece of a team anyway. So to get real change, you need to be tackling things on a team coaching level, and then the embedding and the dominant style of management, and again, dominant as opposed to universal. It just doesn't happen that way. And then the link with the stakeholders, how the organization engages internally in a coaching manner, and then eventually how the organization takes a coaching approach to how it interacts with the stakeholders and gets and clarifies the commissioning with the stakeholders and the connecting with the stakeholders. So thank you again for contributing in the chat, everybody. Super.
Now, one thing, Ruairí, that occurs to me, looking at the chat as well, and both Anne and so there's another one, sort of Karen was saying about the time it takes, and also the return on investment and maintaining that level of what's the word, that keeping goingness. How do you keep going when actually there may be a lot of negativity around you? There's a lot of people from the sidelines going, this is never going to work. We tried that before. Oh, we've been doing this for 6 months already. I haven't seen a tangible difference. How do you keep going? How do you overcome apathy as a blocker, or that impatience as a blocker?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, look, my experience has been that I certainly made this, I think it's a mistake, you know, but the mistake is that just because we're coaching and we're sold on it and, you know, we really think it's the way to go, we are still always trying to move people from motivation to intention. You know, the idea that, like, I mean, if you talk to somebody about the benefits of coaching and invariably they will say, oh yeah, that's a really good idea and I like what you're saying, etc. But they have no intention of doing anything about it. You know, they haven't moved from motivation to intention. Just like somebody who is a smoker and you say, would you like to give up smoking? They'll say, yeah, I would, yeah. And they'd probably give you 50 reasons why they should give it up, but they have no intention of giving it up. And what moves us from motivation to intention is where we feel we've identified a need that we need to satisfy. So much of our work as coaches is around raising the awareness of people and an organization through their people of not just, like, it's not about giving people a vitamin. It's about giving people an aspirin, because the headaches that occur in organizations, the real headaches that people do really want to solve, are embedded in a faulty way of interacting that we have. It's based on the notion that one of us here has the right answer, and whoever it's almost like Aristotle. We've been kind of sold a puppet Aristotle, I think. Whoever constructs the most logical and lucid argument, we go with them, as opposed to starting from the premise that there is a wisdom here that we can come together, that we can come to, if we can develop the skills to, I'm repeating myself now, but to advocate and inquire together as to how best we can move forward. And it's this kind of almost abrogation of the need for one person to be right all the time. And so back to the intention, to motivation to intention. The assumption that people will do something that's logical just because we tell them that is a problem for us. It's about doing what we do best and asking the kind of questions that raise people's awareness around where the headaches are here and how do we go about doing business differently so that we
Rory,
move on together. Shelley,
did you? I think you will remember too that one of the best ways that we found to overcome that resistance or to overcome that lethargy was to show people through the training, through the educating, how coaching could be useful for them. So what was it? You know, why are we talking about this, and how does it fit me? And to actually show them as part of the didactic element how this is your situation, and these are examples of how coaching or using a coaching approach in that situation can benefit you and the people that you are working with. So it's to actually show them and give them the examples, because a lot of people don't have that vision or don't have enough background knowledge to be able to see, well, I can apply coaching in this instance, and I can change my language around this, and this is why it will be good to do that.
Yeah. There's some great points in the chat there. I wish I could talk to them a bit more. Look, there's 2 minutes left on this, so let me just finish up this bit. What we found useful to move people from intention to motivation has been showing them a framework that is that allows them to benchmark their organization against what is considered best practice. People take notice of that. People feel, well, if other people are doing it, are we measuring up? Are we not measuring up? And we found the ISMCP, the EMCC ISMCP, which was a short way of saying that, framework. We found that incredibly useful to say, look, this is what the best organizations in the world are doing. Let's have a look at this organization and see how we're doing. And of course, once they start to look at the requirements, the benchmarks, the standards, they all involve a coaching approach, which raises questions in people's heads then around, well, just maybe are we doing that? Maybe we're not, and how are we? Maybe we need to look at that, and it starts that conversation. So back to the smoker. If the smoker's partner comes in and says, look, you're not getting any kisses and cuddles unless you give up smoking, suddenly we've gone from motivation to intention. Suddenly the smoker starts to look at ways in which they can give up smoking. So in some ways, we found the ability to benchmark against others a way of moving people from motivation to intention, because there was something clear about what they had to do. Yeah. So yeah, Nicholas, 11 o'clock.
It is.
Yeah. Nicola, even those six benchmarks there have a whole lot of standards and statements really that guide you even further. So it's not just those.
No,
yeah.
I put a link further on earlier on in the chat, actually.
You did. Thanks for that. I meant to mention that. As we'd really like to hear more from people who are working in the same area, we as in EDelia as well, because we do feel that there's an incredible benefit to be got from doing this work, you know, and just, you know, the truth is we're dealing with global problems right now, you know, and they require us to find a different way to discuss things and to come to a greater wisdom together. And you know, when we are coaching and promoting a coaching approach, it's not just the immediate present benefit that we get, you know, the person who's in front of us or the team that's in front of us, but you know, for us to really tackle the kind of problems that we're facing and that our kids are going to face, we do need to get people to take a different way of tackling problems, you know, and it involves us being able to advocate an inquiry on this. It might be a bit soapbox, you know, but I do feel it's very important work. So do please stay in touch, and thank you all for contributing. And Shelley and Nicola, thanks a million for that.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.